Hello, today is October the 5th, and if you're here for DITA for Slideshows with Franz Barrow, you're in the right place. My name is Scott Abel, and I'll be the host for today's show. Welcome. We appreciate you showing up for our webinar series. We were almost up to 100 webinars this year. We're going to have lots more before the end of the year, so we hope you'll join us. And to learn more about how to keep up to date on all the activities that we have and the webinars that we provide, you can join our insiders list at contentwrangler.com, and you'll receive access to all these events, including discounts on software and services. Today's show is brought to you by Content Rules. Content Rules is a professional services company that provides content development, optimization, and global readiness services. Whether you need extra writers, editors, or illustrators, or you're just getting ready to go global for the first time, Content Rules can help. And if you realize that you're spending too much time and money on content development because you can't find it or you're not reusing it like you should definitely contact Content Rules to talk about content strategy and structured authoring services. Learn more about Content Rules at contentrules.com. All right. I skipped ahead a slide here. So we're going to give away some books at the end of the show. 5 of you lucky attendees will receive a copy of The Author Experience by Rick Yagodich, one of 7 books in our 12-book series of content strategy books from XML Press. So look for that at the end of the show. A few housekeeping items first. We'd like you to ask questions of the presenter, and to do so, you use the Questions tab in the webinar viewing panel to leave a text-based question that I will prioritize and ask of the presenter at the end of the show. So based on the time allotted at the end of the show, we'll get to as many questions as we can. Also, on the way out the door, we ask that you rate the presenter using the 5-star rating system, also available to you in the webinar viewing panel, 1 being low, the lowest rating, 5 being the highest. Let our presenter know how she did today and what you thought of the content. And then if you'd like to watch the recording, the URL that you're using to watch the show right now is the same URL that will magically turn into a recording about 5 minutes after the show is over today. So if you'd like to share this link or embed the webinar into a blog post or an email message for your team or the friends or anybody else that's interested, we hope that you do. All right, housekeeping out of the way. I'd like to welcome to the stage our presenter. Franz, are you on the line?
I'm on the line.
Awesome. Where are you broadcasting from today?
I'm in Victoria, BC.
Excellent. And how's the weather?
It's very Victorian. We have a gray sky, but no rain.
But no rain. Well, and that's perfect for today. So I tell you what, I will stay on the line, but I will put myself on mute and be in the background. Should you need me, I'll pop on the line and assist in any way I can. If not, I will rejoin you when we come to the question slide at the end of the show, and you can take it away from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my presentation, DITA and Slideshows. Is it like inviting the Pope to a rave? This is a presentation that should interest people who would like to reuse their content, new or existing, in slideshows, and also to those who are interested in content architecture and how far we can push content manipulation. So even if you're not thinking of doing slideshows, I bring a lot of ideas on how to manipulate pieces of content in a way that we don't traditionally do it with DITA. As a consultant, I've spent more than a decade telling people how to stop losing time on layouts so that they can work on creating quality content instead. And I told them that they should follow recognizable patterns and keep consistency. But the thing is, as a consultant, I've been creating content mostly for training and conferences. So of all the tools out there, I've been using the tool that requires the most tweaking. I've been using PowerPoint. I've also been recreating the same content over and over as I introduce the most basic concept all the time. I have 20 versions of my slide, What is DITA? So I'm pretty sure you can relate to that. This presentation is basically the solution to this problem. At least it is for me. I hope it can also be for you. The slides you'll see today are made of DITA content, and it is transformed to HTML5. So it is an HTML5 slideshow I'm presenting from Safari right now. My HTML5 follows certain rules, the rules that are prescribed to me by another tool that's called Reveal.js. Now you can Google this tool. It's a free tool. So it's reveal as in revealing and .js as in JavaScript. I learned about this tool from Yaz Itassam and Laura Bellamy from VMware, who presented at another DITA conference, and they were using it with DITA as well. So what this tool does, just so you get the start, is it allows me to navigate content in HTML like I would a regular slideshow, so with bullets that are displayed and everything. I can also navigate from a global perspective. I have the speaker's notes that you would get with most tools, so I can see on the side the slides that are coming up, so it's giving me some information. If I actually had put speaker's note in my presentation, you would see them at the right of the screen in the bottom. So let me quit this, go back to regular, and you have one big advantage when you're using HTML over the traditional tools is that it's more responsive. So let me get out of full screen just to show you. This is how it look like on a phone. So you could display it on a phone. If you turn your phone around, you could still display it with a completely different perspective. If I were using a traditional projector or even a tablet, I would have something that's more like this size. So you can resize it and you can display it on any of the devices that we have out there. And a little extra also, you can zoom in. So you know sometimes you have an illustration, it's just a little bit too tiny, but you have to give the global picture. Well, you can zoom in and out and use that. So let's get started with the real content here. I assume that you're familiar a little bit with XML and the notion of structured content. If you're not, you'll still get the global value proposition, but just think of structured content as when you use Microsoft Word and you name your headings as heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and you can use that to say to Word, please create a table of content for me. And it does that because the headings have been labeled properly. So with DITA and with XML, we do the same thing, but way more powerful. It's just like 10 times what we can do with Microsoft Word, or maybe even more than 10 times. So let's get started. Topics are about content, so we'll start by talking about what our topics are in our traditional publishing with web and PDF. Then we'll look at slideshows and how they are more about presenting, more than about presenting information. We'll compare our text content that we have with our traditional tools and compare it to what we want to put on slides. And then we'll see what the differences are and what we need to do to address those differences. When we work with DITA, we expect that we'll be able to change content over time and see those changes applied in all of our media. So we're also expecting that with slideshows, but there are a little bit of issues with it, and we'll look at one of the more complex issue when we'll talk about building slides for tasks. And yeah, we'll discuss template and images, and then the so what is just the conclusion. So what do we do from here? So topics are about content, and DITA provides the rules for creating these topics. Usually DITA means text, and we're talking about the smallest unit of information that makes sense on their own, and it's usually with a title, a mandatory body, and optional related links. So that's the simplest form of a topic. But in slides, well, we can deal with the title. We usually don't care at all about the related links. And that body of text is kind of big to put on the slide, so we're limited by our real estate here. DITA is about rules and structure. So it provides the rules for creating the content. And like the Bible, DITA content has a lot of text. We always talk about minimalism in DITA, but no matter how minimalistic you are in your writing, it's unlikely to fit onto a slide. The rules that we use are there to help us save money and time, and usually the money is saved through the time. So they kind of come together, but it's also about being consistent, from the consistency of the message to the consistency of the layout and presentation. And that's usually represented, like people will see it as high quality. It's like I can find the stuff, I can reuse the stuff, I can read it, I can use it for trying to debug what's going on in front of me. And one thing it doesn't say here is that DITA is also about sticking rigorously to the message. So we're not trying to tell a story, we're not using metaphors, we're going straight to the content, we're giving people the answers that they want right there. The thing is, the slides, they're about stories. We are telling people stories. We are using metaphors. When I was starting with the tool, I looked at my old presentation, and this is one. One toilet, 2 floors up is acceptable if you sell clothes, not if you serve drinks. And what I was trying to do with this presentation was to tell people that we know about toilets. If we were building something, we'd know that we're missing a toilet because that's something we've used since we were kids. We use them every day. They're in our life all the time. And we know that if we're doing a commercial building or a house, we'll build them differently. But when it comes to DITA, we accept the structures that are offered to us without questioning them. And we're like, well, the people who build those structures are very knowledgeable. And they are. But when they build the structures, do they always consider your business case? So I was talking to people who had an industry that is plagued with acronyms, and the glossary structure we have in DITA are good, but they're not exactly good enough for that client. So I told them that their acronyms were like coffee, the coffee that we serve. And then they have to run to the glossary all the time. And then I got into the technical details and I got into the real explanation. In another presentation, I was trying to explain to people that if we write system tasks, we're not always telling our clients how to reuse those system tasks together into their own business processes. So we might lose them, and the client might not get to the end result, and they might not use our product very efficiently because they can't put the pieces back together. And I told them that maybe there's even a mouse or a competition that's trying to get there before them, and they might not make it. And then I talk about the real content, and then I give them the conclusion that is, if your business processes are well documented, then you will make it to the market. So in these two examples, they're done with different tools. The second one is Spreadsheet, the first one was PowerPoint. It doesn't matter what the tool is. What's really important and what's common is I was telling a story. I was not using that much text, and whatever text I was using was really, really far from the quantity you'd find in a DITA topic. So what does this leave us if we compare exactly what we want to do with one and the other? Well, the topics, they make sense on their own. And the slides, they do too, but sometimes with the help of the presenter, or sometimes they just make sense if you're looking at 3 slides. So I'm telling you a story and I'm moving from one slide to the next, and you need to see the whole story before you can understand each slide individually. In topics, we use full sentences, and in slides, we tend to stick to segments and enumerations. Topics are text-oriented, while slides have a lot of images. In both cases, I'm trying to introduce ideas, but in the topics, I'll go way deeper. So I'll try to inform people about the details. I'll try to support their work. While in slide, I'm trying to open the mind. I'm trying to present something new. I'm not going to go into the same details. And then topics, usually when you put them together, you get a complete set of information. And with slides, you're just sticking to one story. So how am I going to be building slides from topics? Can I actually do that? Can I actually say, well, I have all this text. Can I reuse it in my slides? So we'll look at a little theory, and we'll look at 2 demos of how I created a little product that helped me do that. Okay, here I'm using a topic that you already saw in my presentation. So this is my topic about what are topics. And as you can see, I don't even have a one-to-one relationship. I'm taking my topic and I'm splitting it into multiple slides. And in this case, I took the abstract at the top, made one slide out of it, and I put the section at the bottom and created one other slide out of it. And then I used the image in both slides to create continuity, but I could have used any other type of images. So let's look at a quick demo. So first I'm going to create a slideshow. So I'm just going to say, okay, create slideshow. I'll give it a title. And then when I click create, it's going to create for me a title page, an agenda. It also has placeholders for my sections. I'll rename the sections to match the content that we'll create in this demo, so just to match with what we'll be doing later on. So we'll talk about topics and tasks. So as you can see, the agenda has been refreshed, and I have my placeholders that have also been refreshed. So let's look also at the look. So just like with other traditional slideshow tools, I can select the look that I want. In this case, I can select a little bit more. So I'll decide that I want to include the agenda, and I checked out the include section overview. So that would be like the sections are like where it says topics and tasks, and I could have a little overview of what's coming up. So I'll remove it in our demo, but if you want to see what it looks like, be careful when you're looking at my presentation because I am using section overviews. I'll put the serif theme. So this is my template that I'll use. I'm using a template that's different than the one you're seeing in my presentation, just to show that we can do different things. And I'll put the slide transition to none because we're using screen captures for the demo. You wouldn't see them anyway. Okay, so now I'll add some content. I'll add a concept that talks about topics, and I'll just drag and drop it. And then what I see here is my topic is at the bottom, and at the top, I get the list of the block elements that are a part of my topic. And then I can select which ones should become slides. This is not the best in terms of user-friendly friendliness, I guess I should say. But this was for my proof of concept, so I'm working on a better interface so that people don't have to know that the abstract is actually this little piece of information down here, and that the section is the paragraph and the bulleted list. So I'm working on that at this point. So what happens? Now I have, if you look on the left-hand side, you see I have two topics. And if I look at my demo in the middle here, the slides, I can see that it has been added. I have nothing to do to be able to see the bullets one at a time. There's a rule in the system that says when you see bullets, make them appear one at a time when people click on the screen. So it will be consistent everywhere, and I don't have to reset that for every single slide. So now I have content, but it's kind of boring, right? So we're sticking to text. So what do I do if I want to get images? Well, I can just say add illustration. So I'm going to add an illustration in this case from the topic. But if I wanted images that are related to my story and my metaphor, like I wanted to put the Pope in there or an image of a rave, I would go add illustration from database. So I'll add one from the topic just to recreate what we had earlier. Now, if you're good at finding details, you'll see that my image has a border around it, which I didn't have when I presented earlier. That's from my template. So the template is going to decide for me what the images are going to look everywhere. So it's there's no more manual playing. Like it's just going to do it for me. So what else? I'm pretty sure there's more to it. Yeah, select slide layout. So now my image was put in front of my topic, but maybe that's not what I want. So what if I wanted to change that? Well, I can select different types of layout, and they're going to be based on templates that I define. So I can define as many types of templates as I want. The most basic one was what we saw before the image was added. And then the system said, well, there's an image, so we'll put it either first or last. So it took one of the templates that matched with images. And I have another one that says, use the image as a background and define a custom area where you want to put your text. So what happens is the tool will try to resize the text to put it in the text area. So even if you're translating and you get text that's longer, it's never going to go outside of the predefined text area. And I have the option to hide titles. In my case, I created it mostly for when you have large illustrations, and then having the title on top of it is not allowing you to see the details. And this demo is also done within my tool. And as you can see, I don't have a title over my screen captures. I'm just presenting them to you full screen. So let's apply this. And now I have my image at the end, and I just following the new template. If you find that the text is too close to the image, you could go and change the CSS, because I find they are a little cramped here in the middle. So I could have done a better job creating my CSS and just say, I want more space. I want this to breathe a little bit better. So I don't know if you noticed, but just in this slide, it's very convenient that those bullets were just a few words, right? But in real life, we have bullets that are often longer because in a textbook, there's no one to explain anything. So you need to have the explanation within the bullet point. So what I did is I created a new element that I called key points that allows me to highlight parts of the text. So just the main idea, and then extract those to create slideshows. So what I'm doing is working with my XML to create new structures that enable me to have better reuse within specific media like slideshows. I don't have, like you see them as yellow here. They're shown as yellow in my tool as well. But once you output it, you don't have to see it as yellow in your textbook. You don't have to see it as yellow in your web page because that's the magic of XML. XML says, I can tag something and then I can format it a certain way. I can use the fact that there's a tag to extract content to create something new, or I can do nothing at all with the tag. So if I want to do nothing at all with the tag, they're just not going to appear as yellow. They're just going to appear as something, some other very plain text. And also, if you look at the bottom, you'll notice that all the bullet points are capitalized when the reused content was not capitalized necessarily at the top. And that's just because I created a rule for it. I said, once you take something, you extract it, you put it in a bullet point, please capitalize it so that it looks nice and pretty. Okay, so I'm going to do, I'm not sure what I'm going, oh yeah, I'm going to do the, that's the thing when you prepare your demo ahead of time, you forget what you've put in the demo. So what I'm going to do is show you how I can tell the system to extract those bullets. So I'm going to add the topic again to my presentation. And then I can see here, it's called UL. UL is for unordered list. So that's the element here that tells me that I have a bulleted list. And I'll select two different types of output. So I'll select as a simple slide, or I'll select a quick overview, which says it's going to be the key points only. So I'm going to show you that I can actually produce my slides using both types of output. So apply, and then the first slide that I have is the one with the entire bullet. It's kind of crampy. I could maybe need it for training. I might need it for something else, but I don't know in advance. So I created patterns that people who create the slideshows can choose. Or I have the other slide, which only uses the key points. So there's a lot of flexibility there. The thing that matters is that you define patterns and you reuse them. So it's always about identifying the patterns. So what happens if I'm trying to document tasks that are kind of long? I would not normally do that in a presentation like this, but I might want to present tasks when I'm doing training. So in that case, I want to explore things either in details or I'm going to give an overview of the task that's coming up. And tasks are sequences, and we'll get into the details of that, but it brings a special type of problem. I might want to reuse individual list items and slides. So if the bullet, I said I want to see my 3 bullets all into the one slide, but I could say I want to see 1 bullet per slide and add a nice image, or I could want to see 1 bullet per slide, and just because it has more impact to have just this 1 sentence on my slide. But with tasks, we really could have like easily 7 or 9 steps. So the thing is, tasks are very long. And even with the steps, like you have screen captures, you might have the step result. Just look at step 2, how big it is. So I could want to present all of that on one slide, but I could also say, you know what, I'm going to select this item 1 as 1 slide, this item 2 as a second slide, this item 3 as a third slide. Now, that would look good the first time. The first time I will get 3 slides with 3 steps. Maybe I'll remove the info here because it makes it a little big and just keep the command. And here the step result that says, oh, the slideshow is created and it appears, blah, blah, blah. But it's still very long. And it's still going one slide, step one slide, step two. And then I'm doing maintenance and I add a step. So let's say I add a step between 1 and 2 because the new version of the software has an extra step, or because I thought I cramped too much in step 1 and decided to divide it. Now in my map, in my menu, I'm never referencing the slide 2 because I'm referencing the slide 1 here, and my old 2 is now number 3. So I'm going to create a maintenance nightmare. Adding a step in a task is going to create a slideshow nightmare, and that's not what I want. What I want with DITA is I want to say, I update things, it gets updated automatically everywhere, and stop bugging me. Let's see what happens if we do it in real. So I'm going to create a few slides. I'm going to drag and drop this task that says create a new slideshow, and I'm going to say create a detailed overview, which would be kind of similar to what we have with our bullets, or create one slide per step. So I'm not going to link each slide manually and just click, like I don't have options here to say step 1, reuse step 2, reuse step 3. No, because then I would create my maintenance, I have a hard time pronouncing that. My maintenance problem would become apparent. So I'm saying no. You, the tool, automatically, when you find a step, will create a slide for it. So I don't even have to go and create 7 slides. I click one button, I get 7 slides. Kind of a bonus. So what happens? This is my overview, and I got just the command and the result. And then I have 1 slide per step. So I had slide 1, I had slide 2. So now what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to add images to make everything pretty. Okay, I have to show you this. This item that's selected in the menu here at the left has a little arrow. And what happened is my step 2 was very long because it had information like a screen capture and also the details of all the fields that I need to fill. So my rule, if we go back, said actually, oops, one more, 1 slide per step, split info. So it's putting the info in a separate slide, and it's actually putting it, so here's my separate slide, and it's actually putting it on a different axis. So if you look at the middle row here, this is what happens when I click next. I go to the next slide, and then I go to the next slide. And the info is put below, because sometimes I might want to tell people what the form fields are, and sometimes I might not. So it makes it optional, and the presenter can decide when they want to go and see the details and when they don't want to see the details. In this case, title description is a little bit babyish. People would figure it out. Maybe I should not even have it in my descriptions at all. But sometimes when you're doing training, you're reusing the same kind of field in many forms. So I might want to see them the first time and then not go again the next time. Or when people ask questions, I will go again and see the details. So it gives presenter a lot more flexibility. I'm going to finish putting my images and my nice slide layouts, and I'm going to keep the third one as ugly as it is as text, and then I'm going to approve them. So once I've done doing the nice layout, I'm going to say, you know what, I like this, I want it like that, and I want to know that I came and reviewed stuff and that I put the image the way I want it. And we'll see why we're doing that. We'll go and add that new step. So now I'm going to comment it out, and it says, take this step, it will make you happy. And then I'm going to refresh my slideshow. And what happened, you can see it here. It found that there's a new thing, and it has not been approved for the look. So it found my new step because my rule is not reuse this 1 step, reuse this 1 step. It's reuse all steps and create 1 slide per step. So that's how I can use the power of XML to do work for me. That's like delegating the work to the tool and knowing that I get to review stuff and go and ask for something better. So now I have my task, my step 2. And if I go into my overview, I'll see that all the steps have also been refreshed. So I have step 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this one was obvious because it's one place and we reuse a specific content reference. The other one was less obvious because if I had followed my first pattern, I would have had to reference my new step manually, and I would have had to know that there was a new step. Okay, templating. So if I want the tool to be doing the work for me, I have to offer it rules and patterns, and templating is one. We already saw most of the templates earlier, so I can have a title with some content where the content is either an image or some text. I can have the side-by-side image and text. I can have, here I have, it's the exact title with the bullet points, where the bullet points behavior can be predefined. I can have my title page. I have section titles that we see at the bottom. And you can see, if you look at the two agendas that are here, I have one that has one column and the other one that has two. Once again, it's rule-based. So I say if there's more than 5 bullets, put them as 2 columns. It would have been the same with other types of bullets. As long as I predefine rules, they can be reapplied automatically. So it's really removing a lot of the tweaking that we're doing with traditional tools where like, oh, the image should be a little bit higher, it should be a little bit lower. No, it's centered, and that's it. The one thing that might happen, though, is that I would need rules to define the size of the images that I want to use. As you can see, this image fits very nicely as a half image. So I'm trying to follow, when I select my images, I'm trying to follow my rules of does it fit on a half page, for example. But I could also define a template that says I can have the image doing 1/3 of the slide and then the content doing 2/3. And then I would just select that layout, right? So images are key, and I've added a little extra thing for manipulating images. When we're working with PDF or web pages, we have a lot of landscape images, just like this one. So this one is topic-based authoring. It's an image that I reuse all the time, and it explains to people that they can reuse topics in different orders to create a training manual or just a user manual. But sometimes I want to have an extra explanation. So I want to use a side-by-side image. So what I did, this is the exact same image, but in a different version, right, in a different size. So what I want to do here is I created image families. So when I create images, especially the images that are related to my content and not the images that are related to metaphors, I will say I have these keywords and I want to find these images. And then instead of returning me one image, it will return me the family. And then it will say, do you want to select the portrait image or the landscape image? And then I can select the one I want. So it gives me a little bit more flexibility. These images that are like the portrait image is very useful for slideshows, but if you're thinking more globally, you're probably going to be recreating these images anyway for pamphlet or brochures or any other type of media that are not just user manual. So if you're breaking the silos in your business, you'll see that you can reuse those families a lot. Why do I give people control? So I could put the image on either side, right? But not always. Like this guy, he actually looks like the guy who's had too much ecstasy at the rave party. Yet, I've created this following all the patterns and rules that the Pope told me that I should follow. So it's not really fair. I need to have a visual tool a little bit more than I needed to have a visual tool with my old traditional media. So I'll put the guy on the right side, and then my presentation makes a lot more sense. What else? So we talked about slideshows being a story and using metaphors like my Pope, my coffee, and my cat, and my mouse. And we also sometimes reuse content or images that are related to the content. So the content images, they belong in the topic. When I'm saying, oh, I'm going to do a slideshow and reuse the topic I have, oh, I'd like to have this nice image, I'm going to reference the image in my topic. So this guy that says this is what a topic is makes sense to be referenced directly into my topic. By doing that, I'm making the image available to others, and they don't have to look for it. They know they have an image that's related to what's the topic. So now I can enhance my manual, even if I only at first needed to create it for my slideshow. But I can filter it out in some of the media. For example, I might say, well, you know what, this guy with his shiny smile and his green background, yes, it might help people understand in my manual what things are, but he's too shiny for that. Like, it's starting to look like a comic book. So I could filter out this little guy from my actual manual. And I can select images on a per slide basis, and we saw that when I was creating 2 slides out of the same topic, I reused the same image. So it doesn't matter where in my topic the image is, I could reuse it with any of the segments. However, stories and metaphors belong to the map. When I'm talking to people about 2 toilets, 1 toilet 2 floors up is enough if you serve drinks, not if you sell clothes, I don't want that every time somebody goes to see a topic, they see a picture of coffee. It's not relevant to my topic. It's just polluting my topic. So if I'm creating a slideshow and I want to add a coffee cup or a line of people waiting at the bathroom, I'm not going to put that information into my topic. So what the tool does is it will put it into the map. So it's actually the map that's referencing the image. And I bring that up for people who have the mind of a content architect and they're like, okay, but what am I doing with this coffee cup? So you want to keep things clean, even if you're going to go into stories and into slideshows. So what? Well, so what? We can catch on the similarities. So even though it's different, it's not all that different. There are some similarities, and it allows you to publish faster. Like this, creating a slideshow with topics that are already there is very quick. Even like with the steps, it was especially quick where I say, reuse all the steps and get me 1 slide for each. Like how fast is it to create 7 slides if you have 7 steps? It's really fast. It's also really fast if you're doing translation and the translation has already been done for the content before. It just shows consistency, and you have the consistency from the templates, because even if other tools have templates, if you've played with them enough, you know that you can break those templates and then you're tweaking again. It's like the template never existed. And then you try to change the template in the back and it doesn't really look good because some of the tweaks don't work anymore. So it brings a lot more consistency and you're actually reusing the same content all the time. And that slide about what's the topic that I've been using for 15 years, well, I could reuse it as the same slide all the time, and it would be way more consistent. And it limits the translation cost if your content is already translated, or even if you're going to start reusing the same slide in different slideshows, it becomes very relevant to have your translation only once. The party is started. You can push, pull, and filter content. You can output attractive slides. Now, mine are quite basic because I'm not a graphic designer, so I just put a white background and I made it really, really, really basic, but you could go as crazy as you want. It's HTML, right? So any good web design that you see for pages that you like, you could reproduce there. The only limit is that we're trying not to have the scroll bar with slideshows. So you'd have to maybe have your scroll inside or outside, or no scroll at all. So then you'd have to select a few designs that allow you to do that. But anything beautiful you see on the web, you could reproduce with the slides. You can deliver on any screen size. So we saw that. That's kind of party-like. And it's HTML5, so we can add interactivity. So I'm thinking when I'm doing training, and I'm working on that right now on the side, is I'm doing training, and I might have multiple modules that are not prerequisite to the next. Like, so if somebody comes and they say, I want to start with module 5, I could let them navigate and have more control over that. I could also have, and I say could, but I can't because I've already created those, but the assessments. So questions for people as they're going through my training. The assessments are actually really cool for computer-based training when I don't have a presenter and people are doing it on their own on their tablet. It becomes really interesting, and it could be linked to my LMS where I can track what people are doing. So HTML5 gives me a lot of power. On the serious side, though, well, you can marry a content model. So once you have, because you need some rules, right? So you need to have some things that are predefined. But I would say have a contract that adapts to a lifetime of changes. And that's what DITA is doing. DITA is offering specializations that allow me to modify my contract, my marriage contract, to be flexible over time and as I add new media and everything like that. So this is it for the presentation. You get to ask questions now. I don't know, Scott, if you received a lot of questions or not at all.
I have, and here we go. So let's tackle some of these questions. First of all, I would like to ask you if you have thought about bi-directional content, or like Chinese, Japanese, Korean content, and also like Hebrew and Arabic, and like, so would the functionality of this work the same and going different directions?
Yes, because you have to choose the correct fonts, right?
Right.
So there's fonts that won't allow for that, but any font that will allow to display Korean on a web page would be usable for this. It's HTML, like
right.
As long as you use UTF-8 and the standards that will allow you to not have weird characters and everything, it will work.
Great. All right. So is this tool connected? I don't know who's clicking these buttons, but let's stop doing that. Is this tool connected to a CCMS? Is one of the questions from the audience.
It's not a CCMS. My goal is to make this tool open source and to use it as an interface and to have people connect to their own CMS. So I haven't done any CMS integration yet. I've talked with people who are interested in doing it. It's still in development, right?
Yeah, great.
But that's the goal. But there's also to be able to generate, like as I was creating the slides, the slideshow was being built. And to have something that quick, I need to have a database I use a native XML database that's called BaseX. It's free. Yep. It's not a CMS. It won't manage your workflow, but it will manage your content. So I have that in the background. So there are extra tools involved. It's not just, because otherwise I'd have to do like we do with the DITA toolkit, where I say I create my content and then I hit publish, but I want to see it as I build it because I want it visual. So I do use BaseX. It's a German tool. It's open source. It's free. So you should look it up.
Great. And so some people joined the conversation late, or perhaps they weren't paying attention. So could you tell us, what tool did you just show us? And how did it come about?
I can tell you the whole layout is, first of all, I have my content in BaseX. Then right now I'm still using Oxygen to edit it. So I edit with Oxygen my topics and everything. And then when it comes to the slideshow, I use it on my own tool that I developed. So the demos that you saw were my own tool. In the background of that tool, as I just said, there is BaseX. And in the foreground of that tool, there's Reveal.js. So reveal as in revealing something, and .js as in JavaScript. And that's also an open source tool. So you could Google it, and you'll see they have different templates, and they show all the capabilities of that tool. So my role here is really to take DITA topics and transform them to the HTML format that works with Reveal.js.
BaseX, which I'm not sure that I'm even pronouncing correctly, so this is, of course, why the audience is confused, sounds like it could be spelled many ways. Could you spell it?
Oh, B as in barrel, like my name.
Yep.
A as in Anne. S as in Sophia, Sophie. E as in Elizabeth. And X as in XML.
Perfect.
I think the website is basex.org.
Basex.org. Okay, great. How do you define an image size? Do you basically? How do you decide where it's going to land on the page and how big it should be?
When there's a tool. Okay, for now the rules that I have are really simple because I can either have my image in the middle of the text or side by side, right? Or in the background. So the tool will select to its best capability. So when it sees something portrait, it puts it as a side-by-side. And I think my default is to put the image first and the text last. When it sees something as a portrait, it will leave it in the text. And then I get to go and choose my layout. So if I go back, let me go back. I was choosing the layout. Whoops. Oh, what's happening here? Oh yeah, the demos are maybe a little bit more complex to go back to. So I had here. So I'm selecting my layout. So if I don't like the one that I got by default, I can just say basic, which is going to put the image in the middle of the text, like as a block of text, then image, then block of text, or the side by side, or the image as a background with my custom area that I will predefine and say, do I want it at the bottom because there's a little white space in there or something.
So is your intent to provide the user of the tool, when it's more mature, to be able to specify what kinds of layouts they would like and where that needs to belong, and the rules associated with it when those places where the image should appear need to be different?
Well, I think it's already offering it. It's just like I have a limited number of templates, but it's going to be open source, right? So I'm trying to get to the point where I can actually offer this and have people download it and just use it.
Yeah.
It's going to take, don't expect it to be ready in 2 weeks.
Sure.
But I'm working on this. And even this one, the background image with a custom text area, it's very customizable. And I could create one that says 2 text areas, or I might not allow people to have 5 images all spread out with a title somewhere, not at this point. I did have some place where I was using images as bullet points, and then I had it in a table. So at this point, that's the best I could do to have an image in the text, like in a list of images. But you could create any other type of template.
Can
There's
this,
no limit.
Because it's supported by HTML, then I would imagine that animated images should work just as well as static images?
Yes, and you could have video, you could have audio, you could even say with JavaScript in the back, you could even say when somebody switched the slide, start my audio for that slide. And so, yeah, it's very, very flexible.
Excellent. Are you looking for beta testers?
Not yet. I will be looking for alpha testers probably in a few months, because I'm going to try and put this in the cloud, but it will be with the content that's pre-offered. So you won't be able to put your own content in yet. There's going to be limits, but I'm going to go through those barriers one at a time and hopefully get to a point where people can actually start using it quickly.
Have you thought about in the future, once these other things that you just mentioned are accomplished, making it an app that's available for smartphones to create? I think the content is what they're saying.
Not to create, because I can't imagine having something as powerful as SpaceX run on a smartphone. Maybe I'm just negative, but I would have it as an output though.
Okay.
Try and have something that could be an Android app or an Apple app as an output, so that when people are looking at your slideshow, they can have more power, like a better environment than a browser.
Mm-hmm. And have you thought about whether you'd like a software or a services company to be a partner with you?
I would like to partner with, because my goal is to be open source and to be in the front end. So yeah, if somebody wants to come in and say, do you want to integrate, or do you want to have a better editor, a browser-based editor, instead of using a different client, or yeah, I'm open to all types of collaboration. The goal is whatever gets it out the fastest and whatever gets people to be able to create slideshow the fastest.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I tell you what, that was a great show. Thank you so much for sharing basically your invention, and you're taking these ideas and kind of putting them into the space that I know is the shortfall space. I mean, there are so many client opportunities where people call us at the Content Wrangler and they want us to help them create XML content in, let's say, a PowerPoint environment. My question is always, does it have to be in the PowerPoint environment, or what is the intent of your communication? Are you trying to produce a deliverable? And if you are, why does it matter whether you use PowerPoint? So I guess my last question for you is, do you think that we've kind of been stuck in this mode where we became married to a tool when we started to talk about slides as opposed to talking about slides and the content that goes on them?
Yes. I hear that all the time. Even for this presentation, we're using BrightTalk, and usually you would upload your slides and then present them. And I'm like, I'm not uploading my slides. I have HTML5. I want to screen share. So like on the side of people who create content, we're married to PowerPoint, but also on the side of people who are delivering it. So there's definitely work to be done there. And I think, so a lot of people are limited by this idea, but the problem was, and I was limited to it too at first, because a few years ago, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I did try to do data to PowerPoint. And I was able to create slides, and I had my menu on the side, and I was able to do a lot of things, but I didn't have any programmatical control over the layout. So if in PowerPoint I was defining a text area, and I said, okay, put the stuff in this template in the text area, well, if there was too much text for the text area, it would just bleed. So it would bleed outside the text zone. And I'm like, well, I can't just go and do that every single time and say, well, now it's bleeding, and I have to go and manually tweak it. And then there's also the idea that you were wanting to do your maintenance in the slideshow, so you were not actually updating your source. Like you have a typo in your slideshow, so you just update it in the slideshow. But then it would come back, and then you would have to redo your entire layout, and you would have the same typo again because you never corrected it to the source. So it's not in the state that it's in. Maybe they'll make it even more powerful over time, but in the state that it's in, it was really hard to output to PowerPoint.
Makes
from these limitations.
Sense. Yeah,
yes.
Makes perfect sense. So thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We're going to give away a few books real quick. And the winners of Author Experience by Rick Yagovitch is John Fritz from Freescale Semiconductor, Nicole Harrison at Broadcom, Joel Little, UPS, Kara Pelletier at Ultimate Software, and Rick Timkovich at Dell. Boy, if I messed up anybody's name, don't be surprised. This is definitely my major challenge in life is name pronunciation. But thank you very much for your time today, Franz, because I know that this audience got a lot out of your presentation, and there's a big future in trying to figure out how to create these kind of deliverables that, as you know, we've been kind of trapped into tools as opposed to thinking about the content and freeing it so it can just be one more output format. So thanks for making that point today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Today's show is brought to you by Content Rules. I'd like to thank them as well for their continued support, so check them out on the web at contentrules.com. And until next time, thanks for attending DITA for Slideshows, today's presentation. It was great to have you all here. We've got another probably 24 or 25 shows before the end of the year. If you've got ideas for topics or presenters, we want to hear about them, so please send me an email directly to Scott at the Content Wrangler, and I'll be happy to try to conjure up a show that meets your needs. Thanks so much. Don't forget to rate Franz on the way out the door using the 5-star rating system, feedback from the audience button that's in your webinar viewing panel, and we'll see you again another time. Until then, keep doing good work. Bye-bye.